Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. And I really thank you for inviting me to have this session with you. I hope, it is my hope, that everything that I say will not only enlighten, but will reduce some of the fears and anxiety that people have, which is very natural about something which is new. I want to also congratulate your congregation for taking this very responsible step in providing information to people who need to know. We're people of faith. I myself am a committed Christian and a person of faith, and I never ever dismiss people's concerns and fears. And I have done this talk with many groups, including healthcare workers. So don't feel any way if you are unsure and shaky. It is natural and normal for something new. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm gonna go ahead with the PowerPoint, and then please note your questions. It will be more efficient if we just go through and then you note your questions and ask me, because I am going to leave a lot of time for question and answer. I just want to make the disclaimer that I am not a medical doctor. I am a public health specialist, if you were following the introduction. All right, I have worked in public health for over 30 years, and I am a trained health promotion officer. So my strength is presentation in a clear way. Oh, I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm very familiar, and I'm one of the persons who have been trained to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine. So I'm going to go ahead. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes,
wonderful.
we are.
So let me put it in full mode. All right, I'm in the wrong. All right, so today we're talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. And my presentation today, I will give you a background to COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, the Jamaican situation. Then I will explain a little bit about how vaccines in general work. I talk about the development of the COVID-19 vaccine itself. I will talk about the safety of vaccines, and then I will share a video presentation from my colleague in Barbados. Very short presentation, just about 4 minutes. Then I'll talk about the status of vaccines in Jamaica, what the plans are, and most of the time will be left for your questions, which I hopefully will answer to your satisfaction. So let's go. All right, please note your question. So we all know what is happening now. We have had more than a year of SARS-CoV-2. We heard about it in late 2019. In December, my own University of the West Indies, we started thinking, what is this happening? Do we have to prepare and so on? But by 2020, we heard about the closing down of Wuhan, that is the main area in China where the virus developed. China was locked down. And then we heard Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and finally it came to the West with the USA, which now has the highest cases in the world, reporting cases, and it's really horrific and sad. Over 500,000 people have died in the USA alone. The World Health Organization declared it a global health emergency in February 2020. And we knew that Italy was on everybody's lips in February and March because people were dying, particularly the elderly were dying like flies. The 2020 Olympics were postponed to the detriment of people like myself who are track and field addicts. And in March, Jamaica got its first case, an imported case, a returning resident who came for a funeral and tested positive for COVID-19. And since then, the world's death toll has been climbing and the global cases have gone over 1 million. So this is where we are now. All right. So currently, if you look at my little diagram, many of us are experiencing fear and anxiety. I was just WhatsApping a friend earlier and say I'm going to lock off from the world this weekend because it is becoming overwhelming. In this week alone, 2 people who I know very well have died from COVID. I'm sure almost everybody in here knows somebody who died from it. Schools were closed for more than a year now, since last March. We have all been having churches online, funerals online. Many thousands of people have lost their jobs. There has been separation. I do a lot of research, and a recent research that we did in September to November 2020, many elderly and people who have comorbidities are experiencing mental health problems linked to isolation and separation, much loneliness. We're quarantined, locked down, deaths of loved ones. And the sad thing about COVID deaths, you have to die alone because you cannot have your family and friends around you due to the likelihood of spreading the infection. It is very depressing. I'm sorry to depress you, but it's the reality of where we are. So by the end of March, we know that the Jamaican economy has shrunk by more than 11%. We have over 620 deaths here in Jamaica. We have over 40,000 cases of corona in Jamaica. More women than men have been getting the virus, or it may be that more women than men have been tested, but certainly we have more records of women than men, but more men have died from COVID than women. The highest number of COVID-19 cases are among the 16 to 35-year-olds. Please note that COVID-19 is usually very asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms among the young. Only young people with comorbidities, meaning that they have another illness that makes them susceptible, really very few of them get symptoms. All right, so very often, a lot of young people get COVID-19 and don't even know. The example is of the outbreak in Alorica call center, where I was involved helping the Ministry of Health with interviewing some of those people. 236 of them tested positive, and less than 20 of them noted any sign or symptom. They didn't know that they had gotten COVID. There was no sign. However, they likely spread it to their family members, and it is of detriment to those over 60 years old, particularly those with comorbidities such as a chronic disease, such as hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, respiratory tract infections, asthma, and so on. So 99% of the persons who have died worldwide, but particularly here in Jamaica, have been persons who are over 60 and have had a comorbidity, meaning another illness such as the ones I just listed. We currently know that our hospitals are overcrowded. Most of us are seeing the social media with the pictures of people on the floor of the hospitals. We know that healthcare staff have been infected and dying. Some of our most caring doctors and nurses have succumbed to COVID-19. So as the young people would say, it's not a good look. All right, so it's a crisis, but out of crisis often comes good. You know, last night I was in church in Bible study and we we're talking about persecution, and we spoke about persecution in the church causing the gospel to spread as in the early days after Jesus's death and leaving his disciples. So crisis in COVID-19 led to something good, which is a global collaboration that we have never had before. So because this pandemic, and a pandemic is an epidemic that affects all across the world, all the governments, the health organization, the top scientists, the top business people with lots of money, such as Bill Gates, the philanthropists, all got together to say, what are we going to do about this COVID? Because of that, a lot of money and resources were put into the development of a vaccine, which is unusual because usually vaccine development is done by drug companies who are doing it for a profit. And it would normally take years and they would be investing their money. But this time, the COVID-19 vaccines was mostly developed with money from governments and from scientific organization and philanthropists. And of course, we know that the COVID-19 vaccine did not start to develop, was not started being developed in 2020. COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 is one of the coronaviruses which we would have known before. I remember early in the epidemic when people were skeptical about something called corona, that people were showing the Lysol bottles and so on. So corona is one type of virus that causes the flu and so on. And we have had 2 previous epidemics of corona, all right? The MERS epidemic in 2006 and the SARS epidemic in 2003. That took place in the Eastern world and Canada. I remember still being an employee at the Ministry of Health in 2003 when we were preparing for SARS to come to Jamaica, and we were all praying because we knew that we were totally unequipped to deal with it. It didn't come to Jamaica, thank God, thanks be to God, but that was also caused from a corona. This corona-19 is novel, as you would have heard. It's new, never been seen before, December 2019. But that also helped to push the development of the vaccine, because at that time, vaccines were trying to be developed to deal with the other types of corona, to which this one is a cousin. So vaccine development against corona-19 was accelerated for that reason. And I know a lot of people are concerned about the speed at which the vaccine was developed, but that is the science behind it. One, a lot more resources was put into it than is normal for any other vaccine. And two, the development was well on its way before COVID-19 itself, because it is related to the other coronaviruses that were being worked on before. So I'm going to talk now about vaccines in general and how they work. So I think we all know that we live in an environment with germs and bacteria and funguses. It's all around. It's even in our bodies. There are good bacteria. There's bad bacteria. We know that you can have an overgrowth or so on of bacteria. Now, bacteria are spread by pathogens, that is bacterium, virus, parasite, fungus, and these are what cause disease within the body. Now, when a pathogen infects our body, okay, our body puts up an immune response. It tries to fight that. God created us that way. So our immune system comes into work, and our immune system is like the army that protects our body. It goes into attack and tries to destroy and overcome whatever that pathogen is. Of course, we do know that there are some pathogens that the body cannot overcome, like HIV and herpes and so on. So there have been other pathogens, and some of them the body has successfully put up a response against them. And we know every day we come across these and our body successfully overcome it, unless we're having an immune system issue. Now, when this happens, the pathogen comes into our body creates antibodies, all right? And the pathogen that causes the formation of this antibody is called an antigen. Now, don't worry yourself too much about it. It's just saying, if you want to use an analogy, something attacks your body, your army, which is your immune system, goes into offense, protects your body, and in protecting your body develops, right, a shield called antibodies, and that pathogen, no, the body knows it. It is the enemy. It is an antigen. Antibodies are important part of the immune system. And we have thousands of different antibodies in our body to protect us against all the things that our body has come across. Now, antibodies to one pathogen, let's say you have developed an antibody to some bacteria, some E. coli or something that was in an environment. You went to the beach and there was sewage in the water and you had diarrhea or fever. Your body developed an antibody for this now. So the next time you come across that particular type of E. coli, you'll be able to fight it. So we have thousands of these based on what we were exposed to. But the antibody to one particular pathogen does not protect us against another type, except they're very close, like your cousins, like they're cousins to each other, okay? Now, vaccines are developed deliberately, all right? And they contain a weakened, all right, or an inactive part of an antigen. I remember what the antigen is. That is the enemy, the germ, the bacteria, the virus, the parasite, the fungus. And what it does is, remember, this is inactive now or very, very weak, so it can't give you the sickness. What it does is make your body's army come to work. Your immune system puts up a response without your actually being exposed to the antigen, the enemy, the virus or the bacteria. That's how vaccines in general work. So particularly women, men too, but the women will remember because a lot of women have children and we are usually the carers, the ones that take our babies to be immunized. And in Jamaica, our immunization start very early. By the time you're 2 weeks old, you would have gotten your BCG, which is the vaccine against tuberculosis. And at that point in time, your body know you got a weakened form of the TB, tuberculosis, and your body now becomes immune to tuberculosis, even from your 2 weeks old, because it is something that affects people with weak immune system. And remember, a baby has a very weak immune system because the baby just come into the world, not been exposed to all of these bacteria and viruses, so that baby's immune response gets a little protection from the breast milk if the mother is breastfeeding. However, the baby has to develop its own immune system. So over your lifetime, particularly in your childhood, you got a series of vaccines or immunizations, all right, that we call them here in this part of the world. Now, the newer vaccines, the ones that we are getting now, these new types are different from the ones people my age would have gotten. Well, my age, I'm over 60, would have gotten, because those had the weakened, all right, form of the pathogen, all right, and those would have been put inside our bodies. These new ones are using a technology called mRNA, which is like a picture. It's just like something that is simulated, but it causes your body to develop the immune response. So whether you actually get the antigen, the weakened form of the antigen, or the blueprint form, which is the mRNA, no, this weakened version will not cause the disease in the person receiving the vaccine. All it does is cause your body to say, an enemy is here, an enemy is here, let us put up a defense. It prompts your immune system to respond as much as it would based on its first reaction to the actual pathogen. Now remember what a pathogen is: a bacteria, a virus, and so on. All right? Now, some vaccines require multiple doses. Again, referring to childhood vaccines, the babies, Mummies, you would remember you had to take your child for 3 different MMR shots, the measles, the mumps, the rubella. You had to take them for polio. So some vaccines, you get more than one. It's not just one. You get one at 3 months, you get one at 6 months, you get one at 1 year, and so on. In order for the body to develop that response. Even as a healthcare worker, all right, you can get an immunization, and some of you may be nurses or even other types of healthcare providers. You would get the HPV, they would get the hepatitis vaccine, all right, to protect you against hepatitis that you can get from body fluids from patients or anybody else that you're exposed to. And you would know that you get more than one dose and you have to renew after a certain number of years. So vaccines, that's how vaccines work. They teach your body to put up a response against a pathogen, which is a germ, bacteria, or virus. Now, vaccines work particularly well when a large proportion, more than 60% of the population has that immune response. We call that herd immunity. Now, if you look at the little diagram in the right-hand corner of my screen, you will notice a group of people, and in that group, 2 persons are unable to be vaccinated for some reason. And there are people who cannot take a vaccine, including the COVID-19 vaccine. And we'll talk about that later on because of particular characteristics that they have. But because the rest of us are vaccinated, the virus will not get to them because we now become their protection. And for that to happen, a lot of people in the community are vaccinated. And in the case of COVID-19, we need at least 60%, but most vaccines, you need at least 60% of the population to be vaccinated to have herd immunity. Not calling us cows now, but what it is saying that this population, the pathogen will not spread effectively because there are not enough persons with it to spread it. Okay, it has a very hard time to circulate because most of the people who will get exposed to it are already immune. Their immune response is working towards it. And that's why it's so important for the population to get vaccinated. And you will notice, if you are listening to the news, that the first world countries are being very selfish. They are hoarding the vaccine because they want to make sure that all of their population gets vaccinated. They don't want to run out of the vaccine. And because of they have a lot of money and they have a lot of power, they have more access to the vaccines than the poorer countries like Jamaica and Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean. And so while most of their population, like 10% of their population at this stage are vaccinated, and they have more vaccines than are needed from their population, they're not giving it or selling it or doing anything with it because of the uncertainty of how long, because this is a new vaccine. And the thinking is, we don't know how long this vaccine gives us immunity for. We don't know if it's a year, 2 years, remember it's new. So they're hoarding these vaccines so that if the protection runs out after 6 months or 8 months, they'll have enough to continue vaccinating their population. But they're being ridiculous because herd immunity works across the world and not just within a country because we're still traveling between countries. Anyway, I'm off the point. So that's how vaccines work. And if you have questions about that, just write it down. I'll take it at the end. So let's look at the development of the COVID-19 vaccine, because this is a big sore point for many Jamaicans. One of the main reasons, many of my friends and members of my church, they said, no, so I'm not take the vaccine, they develop too fast, may not trust them, and all of that. All right, how was COVID-19 vaccine developed? As I said before, a lot of the science behind the vaccine was developed even pre to knowing about COVID-19 because it's a coronavirus. And so vaccine development for coronaviruses are already well developed. But what they did is Well, I should point out that as of December 2020, there are over 200 vaccines for COVID-19 being developed. All right, the ones on my screen here are the ones we're more familiar with, but there are over 200 of them. The ones, well, here in Jamaica and our relatives in the USA, North America, and so on are the ones that are on the screen. The Pfizer Biotech, the Moderna, and the Oxford AstraZeneca, which we use here in Jamaica. So what was done? First, they had preclinical testing, and this was done on animals, monkeys and mice. And when that was proven to be effective and safe, they put it over to a trial, right, in vaccine development. Okay, you have a trial phase where a small number of people, 20 odd or so people who volunteered and said, you know, I'm willing for you to be the guinea pig and you can try it on me. And they tried it with these persons and it proved safe and effective. And then they enlisted hundreds of people. And these persons, they tried to get them from different age groups, different blood types, different races, males, females. There were no children, all right, because of the safety issue, all adults, people over 18, but people of different blood type, people of different races, people of different age group, people of different ethnicity were put into these trials, and those were hundreds. And then they did that, and that was successful. And then they went into what is called the efficacy trials on thousands of people, because these people now say, okay, these people got it. They have had it for a few months now. There are no effects. They're safe, and it's protecting them from COVID-19. Let us know. And this now is the efficacy trials. Remember, all of this is being monitored by organizations across the world to make sure that they are abiding by ethical standards. I know another issue that a lot of people have is the experimentation issue and trying it out on people. Now, in 2020, 2021, all research, whether it is vaccine research or any other development of medication or anything, even the kind of behavioral research that I do, is highly monitored. You have to submit to an ethical review board. They come and check. You have to get informed consent. If the trial is proving to work, you have to stop immediately. You cannot continue. All right, if it is proven to be failing, you have to stop immediately. You cannot continue. All of this is monitored. Okay, so that led to the development of a number of vaccines. The most popular ones are the Pfizer, which is 95% effective against COVID. All right, beginning 28 days after the first dose. So pretty much after a month after the first dose, you develop a good immunity to COVID-19. The Moderna, also very similar, and there are 43,500 people in the efficacy trials for the Pfizer. And for the Moderna, 30,000 people with an efficacy of 95%. And then the Oxford AstraZeneca, which is the one that is used in Britain, and this is the one that was developed in India, has 70% efficacy. I know a lot of people asking, so why we take the one with the 70% efficacy? Well, for a number of reasons. One, it is, of course, the most affordable, all right? And it is coming from the agency where we have gotten all of our other vaccines that are used in Jamaica. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the institute in India, all right, where we get the AstraZeneca from, is the institute that develops vaccines, not just the COVID-19 vaccines, but 2/3 of vaccines worldwide. So they're not new. They're not doing anything different. This is what the vaccines that are used in the UK, United Kingdom, and many parts of Europe, they are produced by this corporation in India. And they are the ones doing the AstraZeneca, which is the one we are getting here in Jamaica. So I want to emphasize again These mRNA vaccines are not the live virus. They are like a picture, a photocopy, something that is just sending a message to our immune system that here is an enemy, and our immune system now is developing a response to fight it. It cannot go into our DNA. It cannot penetrate the cells to the place where our DNA is. So all those people who are telling you that it take over your DNA and captures you and you become a robot or you become something else, it is not true. As I said before, there are strict protections in place to ensure the safety. People, talk about previous times. The most popular one for this part of the world is the syphilis trials in the USA. As a public health specialist, this is something I had to study when I was doing my master's in public health, and we talked about, research safety. And you have to learn these things that back in those days, Black people were considered less than human, and they thought that they were doing experiments on animals. And of course, the syphilis trial, all right, in Tuskegee, syphilis trials, they gave these men the syphilis bacteria, and even although they knew that the drug that they were trying to develop to treat it was effective and good, they never gave them the drug. And these men got very ill and died. That cannot happen again in the world, because you cannot do these kinds of research without getting ethical clearance and being monitored. No matter which part of the world you are, there are organizations that monitor your research. So the vaccines, all right, have to be approved, all right, depending on the part of the world that they're from. Everybody has to be approved by the World Health Organization, all right? They have to be approved by the national regulatory agency for the country that they're in. They have to undergo rigorous testing, as I showed you a while ago, the clinical trials, to prove that they meet the internationally agreed standards. And they have to be continuously monitored. And you would have heard very recently that AstraZeneca, all right, was held back from some European countries because there was an association with thrombosis or blood clots. Now, a lot of people got frightened by that, and it has proven recently in the last few days by the European Medicines Association that in rare cases, it does cause blood clotting in rare cases. Now, people, please pay attention very carefully. However, the benefits out of the thousands of hundreds of thousands people that got the AstraZeneca, 19 persons developed blood clots. So the benefits far outweigh the risk. And those persons who developed the blood clots were persons between 50 and 60. Nobody over 60 developed a blood clot. All right, so they are continuing to monitor these. So let me go to the video presentation by my colleague, who very well, in my estimation, describes the process better than I could. So I'm going to share that with you now.
My name is Professor Clive Landis. I'm the chair of the University of the West Indies COVID-19 Task Force. I'm also Pro Vice Chancellor, Board for Undergraduate Studies at UWI, and I'm based here in Barbados. So the question is, how safe is Covishield? That is the vaccine that we've received in Barbados as a gift from the government and the people of India, sometimes known as the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So the safety of a vaccine is determined over multiple phases of human trials, and that's actually preceded by animal work as well. So those trials were all completed in December, and the AstraZeneca vaccine was approved as safe and effective for use by the UK in December, and it's been since approved by the European Medicines Agency, and in February it also received the World Health Organization's endorsement, which is known as emergency use license, on February the 18th. And the safety profile of the AstraZeneca vaccine is actually very good. So some of the readers or viewers would have heard that there was concern about anaphylactic reactions. These would be severe allergic reactions when the Pfizer vaccine, that's the one of the other vaccines, was rolled out in the UK. But actually, those kind of allergic reactions have not been seen with the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is the one that we have here in the Caribbean. But having said that, out of an abundance of caution, it's still recommended, and this will indeed happen. In your case, if you receive the vaccine, you will be observed over a 15-minute period, and there will be materials on hand to deal with any allergic reaction should that happen. But as I mentioned, it hasn't been observed with the AstraZeneca vaccine. The AstraZeneca vaccine is the backbone of the immunization program in the UK. The UK has already immunized 17 million people, and we haven't seen complications or serious adverse events. So that's in relation to the properties of the vaccine. I also wish to address a concern that some viewers have expressed about the vaccine coming from India. Is there some kind of difference in the vaccine if it's made in India as opposed to in the UK? So the vaccine that has come from India comes from the Serum Institute of India. India is the largest producer of vaccines in the world, and within India, the largest producer is the Serum Institute of India, a very venerable biotechnology company. It's estimated that 2/3 of all children in the world receive at least one vaccine from the Serum Institute of India. And the WHO has actually specifically licensed the Covishield vaccine from the Serum Institute of India as being safe and effective for use. So that endorsement has been taken on by the Caribbean Public Health Agency, and so every single regulatory and approval process has been gone through.
Okay, so Professor Landis has given a much better explanation than I did, but we're saying the same thing. Oh dear. I'm sorry, I'm coming back to share my PowerPoint. Right, so at this point, and we have gone much further than this now, I forgot to change the slide. We know that over 335 million doses of vaccine have been given, all right, across the world, all right. There are 75.1 million people, more than that now, closer to 90 million people are fully vaccinated. But this is still less than 1% of the world's population. So the United States have given out 98.2 million doses and have over 30 million people fully vaccinated, which is 10%. All right, and so on. You can see going down. So these larger countries, particularly the ones in Europe, which are not on this slide, they have been hoarding the vaccine, including the UK. All right, let's talk about the Jamaican context now. So it's good news for us. We can get some vaccines. We're lining up to get our vaccines. Of course, we don't have the power of money. We can't afford the more expensive ones. And I forgot to say when I was talking about the Moderna and the Pfizer, that they are far more expensive than the AstraZeneca. The AstraZeneca cost about 30 US cents, while the Moderna and the Pfizer cost about between 15 to 30 US dollars. So you can see the difference, and that's why we're going for that one. But there is hope. And Professor Peter Figueroa, who's my colleague in my department, who you might have heard a lot on television and radio talking about COVID-19 and the trials, the vaccine, he says, the quotation at the top of my slide, when you look at the trials and you look at the persons who were vaccinated, there were virtually nobody admitted to hospital due to COVID among those who were vaccinated. So this is a huge opportunity for us here in Jamaica. So we have received our first set of vaccines. We first got 50,000 doses as a gift from India, from this, the same Serum Institute in India, and that arrived on March 8th. And subsequent to that, we got some from the COVAX. And the COVAX is it's like a, what should I say, like a agreement between the countries of the world to the poorer countries or the less endowed countries to get together to be able to give them the purchasing power for vaccines. So Africa, the Latin America, the Caribbean are in this COVAX, and what we're doing is making ourselves stronger with our numbers so that we can actually compete against the richer, more powerful countries to get vaccines and then distribute them to our countries. So this COVAX is supported by the World Health Organization, who has spoken out about the inequity with the supply of vaccine, and it supports the COVAX. And we got 14,400 doses from COVAX, the same AstraZeneca, on March 15th. And tomorrow we're expecting another 25,000 doses. Generally though, the plan is that, and this is really challenging now, that Jamaica will receive at least 1.8 million doses coming to us on the COVAX from the African Medical Supply Platform. So it's everybody juggling to get vaccines. Everybody wants to reach herd immunity. So what is being done in Jamaica? We know vaccination started. They started with healthcare workers. All healthcare workers are eligible to get the vaccine. Please let me point out that vaccines are free. They are supposed to be provided by the government, because vaccines are not sold. All right, they are free all over the world. If you get it through a private physician, he may charge you for the visit, but he can't charge you for the vaccine. So anywhere you go, the vaccine is free, anywhere in the world. So in Jamaica, healthcare workers got the vaccine first. Some healthcare workers are still being vaccinated. I myself got the vaccine about, when did I get it? About 3 weeks ago, and I'm doing very well. All happened to me was a little soreness at the injection site. That was about it. I had no response at all apart from that. And then now, 2 weeks ago, we moved to the elderly, 75 years and older. And then we're gonna go to 60 and over. We have already started vaccinating the Jamaica Defense Force members and Jamaica Constabulary Force members. They were done along with healthcare workers and the Jamaica Fire Brigade next. Then the Passport and Immigration Agency workers, and then persons who work in early childhood, primary and secondary education institutions, and then everyone else. So sorry if you're in the everyone else, but you will be waiting a while. You probably won't get vaccinated until late this year or early next year, depending on how our government can get the doses to give out. But we have to protect the most vulnerable first. Healthcare providers are mixing with a lot of patients. They are going, to people's body fluids, and many of them are getting sick. And part of the problem, you would have heard a week ago, the university hospital sending out a SOS for retired people to volunteer to come and work, because a lot of their nurses who work in accident and emergency are sick. And those who work in the high dependency units where, you know, people are very, very ill. A lot of them themselves got ill with COVID. And so they need people to work in those places. And so, of course, healthcare workers had to go first. And then, of course, the elderly are vulnerable because one, their age, and two, many of them have comorbidities. Unfortunately, in Jamaica, age goes with a comorbidity because of our lifestyle, which shouldn't be, but that's for another session. All right, so in Jamaica, we get a single dose. We get 2 doses. The single dose first, so you get 1 dose, and then 8 to 12 weeks later, you get your second dose of the AstraZeneca, and this is given by tier. So depending on whether you are a healthcare worker, over 75, over 60, you know, a member of JDF. So you will get your first dose, and 8 to 12 weeks later, you get your second dose, and you are not fully immune until you have gotten your second dose. However, you do have some immunity 1 month after your first dose, but not full immunity. All right, so what are the side effects of the vaccine? You have been vaccinated. What should you expect to happen? First of all, when you go to be vaccinated, they ask you a number of questions. All right, so you know, they don't just grab you and stick you. They ask you a number of questions. They observe all the protocols. You have to keep your distance. You have to, you know, wear your mask. You have to sanitize and all those things. And then they ask you a series of questions about your comorbidities, about your age. You have to present an ID and all of that. And then they explain to you what may happen, and you are observed. If you have comorbidities, you are observed for half an hour. If you have no comorbidities, you're observed for 15 minutes. If you are somebody who has a lot of allergies, you may stay for half an hour or more, because people with allergies who are, you know, have what I call high sensitivity to substances, you know, you're allergic to many things, they would want to observe you for a longer period. So, however, most people who get the vaccine, the very common symptoms are pain or tenderness at the site of the injection. It is given, let me go back to the picture, it is given in the upper arm. Most vaccines have to be given in an arm muscle or a buttock muscle, all right, for it to work effectively and spread throughout the body, because the muscle is moving and spreading it. So you will get it in your upper arm of the hand that you do not use most. So if you're left-handed, you'll get it in your right arm. If you're right-handed, you'll get it in your left arm. All right, so these, you may get a little itching, a little pain, a little redness, depending on your complexion at the site of the injection. Some people feel some malaise. You kind of feel not yourself. You feel a little unwell, you know, like you're getting the flu. You may feel more tired than usual. You may get chills or fever. You may have a little headache, nausea, joint pain, or muscle ache. And again, I'm referring to the mothers who take their babies, or parents who take their babies to be vaccinated. You know, your baby, after they get the vaccination, this is common for them. They can't talk until they say, "Mommy, I'm feeling not so good," but they will be crying and they get a little fever, and you're told to give them liquid Panadol and all of that to deal with these, because your body's immune system is fighting this thing. And so this is why this is happening. So this is a very, very common symptoms. Not so common, but still common, is some people develop a lump at the site. They will get a fever. Some people will actually vomit, not just a nausea, they actually vomit. And some get flu-like symptoms, including sore throat, runny nose, a fever, and cough and chills. So this can happen, but this is not as common as the ones that I mentioned previously. And these are side effects, and they should go away within 48 hours. If they don't, then you need to report back to the site where you got the injection or to your doctor. So who should be vaccinated? Everyone, as far as possible, once you're 16 years and older. Remember, the vaccine trials were not done on children, so we do not know about the safety in children. It was all done on persons 16 years and older. So you have to be 16 years and older to get the vaccine. Currently, we are not immunizing people of 16 years. We're immunizing healthcare workers and people over 75. But when the turn comes for the general population, you have to be 16 minimum. You can get the vaccine if you're pregnant and breastfeeding. You can get it if you're HIV immunocompromised. That means if you're HIV positive. You can get it if you have autoimmune diseases such as lupus. You can get it if you're on treatment for cancer, but you must consult your doctor before you go. Don't just go. You're on treatment, you're getting some kind of therapy for cancer. Tell your doctor, ask your doctor before you go, but you can get it generally speaking. All right. People who have recovered from COVID, not people with active COVID. If you're sick with COVID, you cannot go for the vaccination. All right. You have recovered from COVID. If for those people who have volunteered to get the antibody treatment, 90 days after the treatment has been completed, that is 3 months after the treatment has been completed. So if you're one of those good people who have volunteered to go into the trials for the antibody treatment, then you have to wait 3 months after you have finished the treatment. And people who had COVID can get it even though they would have developed a natural immunity. They can play it safe by going and getting the vaccine, but they have to have completed, all right, 10 days of isolation and are fully recovered from COVID. You can't be having any symptoms. So people who should not take the vaccine is people who are hypoallergenic. You would know by now if you're an adult, if you're hypoallergenic, meaning you're allergic to a lot of things. You get a lot of allergic reaction to a lot of stuff. You can't take certain things. You can't take certain medications and so on. If you're severely allergic, also you can't take it. All right, please consult your doctor, people. All right, if you suffer from any of these, don't guess and spell, ask. All right. If you get a bad reaction to the first dose, they will probably not give you the second dose. You'll be treated. So doctors are there. When you go to the vaccination site, you will see they have doctors who are sitting there, you know, making sure. And when you go in the observation section, 2 doctors are sitting, looking at you, watching you to see if you're developing any reaction. And if you do, then they will give you something to deal with the anaphylactic shock or whatever response you're having. No children under 16 and nobody with active COVID will be given the vaccine. So how effective is it? It's very effective. There is a small percentage of people who will not develop an immune response. Of course, in everything, everybody's body is different. So there's a very minute, less than 1% of people who will get the vaccine and still not develop immunity. All right. It depends on your age, your underlying health condition, your previous exposure to COVID-19. All of these things affect the vaccine's effectiveness in the person. As I said earlier, it's still unknown how long the immunity will last. Remember, the first vaccines were given like in December. So we haven't gone 6 months yet. We don't know how long the immunity lasts. So that is why those countries are storing up, because they want to know if it wears out after a while, they can immunize again. So we really don't know. We must also point out that not everybody who gets the vaccination will be totally protected from COVID. You will certainly, some people will still get COVID, but they will not get very ill. They will not develop the illness to death. They will not have to be hospitalized. All right. And we must, even though you receive the COVID vaccine, when you get it, you still must observe all the protocols, particularly if you haven't had your full dose. 1, you don't want to break the law. 2, you don't want to be a spreader because you may be one of those persons who do not develop immunity. You don't know. All right. So you have to observe all the protocols. You must keep your physical distance. You must wear your mask. You must continue to wash your hands and sanitize. So we are praying with the God's wisdom and science that he has provided that things will go back to normal with the vaccines. Eventually, it's not going to happen in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It's going to take maybe a whole year till we reach herd immunity, when we will be back to church face to face. I also miss face to face church. Yes, I am online and I enjoy the service, but I want to sing and dance with my brethren. We will be able to travel. Those of us who go up twice a year, 3 times a year, or travel for our jobs, we'll be able to go back to traveling safely. I'm terrified of going in an airplane locked up with people who may have COVID, so I myself have chosen not to travel. We can socialize again. I'm sorry for the poor children who have to be in their little bubbles and can't play. And you know how important play is to children. We can go back to our sports or sportsmen. All sports have suffered with looking like so many countries have drawn out of the 2021 Olympics already. I don't know if it's gonna get going. People will continue, particularly the tourism industry and those jobs that are highly dependent, the entertainment industry, highly dependent on people socializing. Those people who have lost their jobs will get their jobs back. School will reopen not face to face, and the entertainment industry life will go back as far as possible to what it was before. All right, so I'm going to go to the question and answer about some quick questions that people usually ask. Is a new variants? What do we know? We do know, for example, that the vaccines are less effective against the South African variant. It has proven to be effective against the UK variant, which, you know, these variants are far more easily spread, but it is effective against them. All right, but less so. And this is one of the reasons why you have to continue to observe the protocols, because Jamaicans travel and come back. Right now, we do know that we do have the UK variant here in Jamaica. It's showing up in many parishes. All right, does it completely prevent? As I said before, no, but your chances of getting very ill is almost zero. Oh dear. All right, and what is COVAX? I think I explained that. It's a global procurement mechanism, like an agreement to ensure fair and equitable allocation of the vaccines. We pool our money together, all right, and we buy the vaccines and distribute to the poorer countries. And the vaccine is not given to children because no trials were done with children. So that's it from me. I am now open to your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bailey. We have learned a lot, and I'm sure there are at least a couple questions that are out there for you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, while you digest the rich information that we have all just gleaned from our presenter, as she said earlier, she's now open to questions. While you're deciding on your question, Dr. Bailey, I'd like to ask one. Has there been any effect, any negative effect, major negative effect of the vaccine administered locally?
Could you repeat?
Has there been any notable negative effect on any of the vaccines administered locally?
Yes, there have been well, I don't know what you mean by negative effects generally, but there have been persons who have had allergic reactions to the vaccine, as all over the world. Remember, everybody's body is different. So there have been persons who have developed allergic reactions to the vaccine. Fortunately, we have only had very few, as far as I know, very, very few people who are so ill that they had to be admitted to hospital. But there have been a few persons who have been so ill that they have been admitted to hospital. But most people, yes, they have had an allergic reaction, the usual anaphylactic shock, you know, racing heart, that kind of thing. But so I'm saying that if you have these beyond 48 hours, you must report them to your doctor. Don't sit and watch. Jamaican people, I've worked in the healthcare system for many years, and Jamaican people like to sit and watch too much. I don't know why. I keep telling them sickness is not a soap opera to be watched.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. So basically, as far you're saying, there has been no there's just been very few, sounds like less than 1% major effects so far locally.
Yes, far less than 1%.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, friends, this is a great opportunity that many persons would like to have such an expert. And so please feel free to share your questions. Just open your mic and go ahead.
All right. Do I acknowledge the hands, or will somebody acknowledge
Yeah,
them first?
I have a question.
Okay, persons will speak out, Dr. Bailey, as
Okay, I saw
Frank.
some raised hands before the person who just spoke. I saw Joy Ellis, CWM, Rowena, Marilyn Thompson. So would you like to go in that order?
Yes, please. I'm asking the co-host. Okay, all right. I'll help monitor as well. All right. So yes, but Tina, you've been tracking them. Dr. Bailey, you could ask them to proceed as you saw the hands. So
Right.
Frankson, could you just please wait? Thank you.
Okay. So Rowena and CWM, I think your hand was up second.
Is
Okay,
that Dr.
so this is Rowena. Can I go ahead?
Yes, because I don't see CWM opening the mic.
Okay.
So go ahead, Rowena. In the
All
interest
right.
of
I heard you discuss what I'm going to ask, but I just want to be clear because I have had a discussion with somebody just not too long ago. I was telling him that one of the reasons I took the vaccine was because I don't want to be responsible for any elderly person who may come into my presence and then I contract the disease, the COVID, and pass it on to him or her. And he was saying taking the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting the COVID. And I'm saying that's not what I was told. That's not what the literature that I've read said to me. It said, I even have a literature here that says in an ongoing clinical trial, the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine has been shown to prevent COVID-19 following 2 doses given 3 weeks apart. So I just want to, because he said I must go and read again because it won't stop me taking the vaccine, won't stop me from getting the COVID. So I just wanted to get more clarification.
Right. So as I said in my presentation, there are going to be persons who have been vaccinated who will still contract COVID-19. This is not everybody who's been vaccinated because your body develops an immune response. But remember, every single person's body is different. So most people will be protected from getting it, but there will be some persons who will still get COVID-19, but they will not be severely ill. Because remember, your body's immune system is there fighting. Okay? So depending on what type of response, remember there are soldiers who are bigger than some, soldiers who are, more skilled than some. Depending on your body's immune response, some people will still unfortunately get COVID-19. But the thing we know and are sure of is that they will not get severely ill.
Right. Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Tina at CWM, same one. I have 2 questions for you, Dr. Bailey. Very enlightening presentation. Thank you. One, if you have a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine, what is usually done if persons have to be hospitalized? What is the intervention there? That's one question. I'll stop and you answer that, and then I ask the second one.
Okay, remember I pointed out that I am not a doctor. I'm not sure what the treatment is, but I do know that at the site, all right, they give you an injection to take away the symptoms of the severe reaction, and then you will be hospitalized and observed, and I guess depending on what they see happening, they will treat you. But I am not au fait to that treatment. But I do know at the observation site, they give you an injection to stop you from developing things that are life-threatening.
Okay.
You can go ahead with
all right, thank you. My other question was, the persons who are getting the Pfizer and the Moderna in other, in first world countries, they get their vaccines apart. But then here, we're hearing 8 to 12 weeks after the first dose.
Right.
Is it because we are not able to afford it?
No, that's a recommendation. Remember, we're not using Pfizer or Moderna. And in fact, there are vaccines like the Johnson & Johnson where there's one dose, but every medication is administered differently. So it has nothing to do with the affordability or what you are supposed to. So when the government is planning, when they get these vaccines, they are putting in store for the people who got it in March so that they'll be able to get their vaccination in May. You get me? So that is why they can't go on to another group, because they have to make sure that the people who got it in March will be able to get their vaccination in May. They have to keep those doses. You get what I'm saying? So let's say, for example, you have 50,000 vaccines. You have to vaccinate 25,000 people, unless you know you're going to have more vaccines, because you have to make sure you have vaccines for the second dose. And that is what they're doing. But the recommendation for the AstraZeneca is 8 to 12 weeks after the first vaccine. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does, because that was a little concerning.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer, and this is going to be my very last the question. But we are getting the AstraZeneca. There are persons who may or may not have preferences. We are hearing that we're getting some Moderna vaccines in May, around about May.
Yes.
I haven't seen anything that tells you whether or who will get these. But what if persons have a preference?
I'm very sorry, my dear.
The Moderna and want to.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to choose. I am pretty sure. I don't absolutely know. I'm not an employee of the Ministry of Health, but I'm very sure, almost sure, you're not going to be able to choose. Think about the situation. We're strapped. We're desperate to try to get vaccines. They are going to have some kind of determination who gets the Moderna and so on. And if you're not in the very high risk group, it's very unlikely you're going to get Moderna. I don't think you're going to have much choice. But you will hear. I'm sure they will tell us. All right, let me move on to Marilyn. Yeah, in the interest of time, let me move on to Marilyn.
Okay, evening, Althea.
Hi, Marilyn.
How are you doing? Good. Thanks for the simplicity in your presentation.
Thank you.
Yes. My question, where can you go, or how can you know what component in the vaccine you're allergic to? I heard that part of your presentation, and it just crossed my mind, Instead of waiting to get it and then realize that.
Exactly. That's a very good question, Marilyn. So what you should do is go on credible sites, please. Credible sites. Don't go to WHO, CDC, all right, or on the drug company site, and they will post the ingredients. WHO is a wonderful site that is very simple, that has frequently asked questions, very informative, very simple, no high language. You can go on and put in AstraZeneca and see what the ingredients are. You can also
WHO, CDC, AstraZeneca ingredients.
Right. World Health Organization.
Yes, I understand.
Right?
Oh, well.
But please use credible sources when you're doing your research, everyone, not just you, Marilyn, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
I think the next time I saw was Lenisha.
No,
Joy,
Mrs. Ellis.
sorry, Joy has,
Ellis.
It was Joy? Okay, sorry.
Been waiting.
I'm so sorry.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Mrs. Bailey, question. You mentioned that most of the persons who have died or who are severely ill are persons with one or more comorbidities.
Yes.
And you went through the tiers of the persons who will be receiving the vaccine. I do not see in your list where persons who are under 75 or under 60 and have comorbidities, how will those persons be addressed? Because if they're the ones who are dying, one would think that they would have been in one of the top tiers. Maybe you can't answer, but it's an observation.
Yeah, I understand. It's a very good point. It's a very important point. Unfortunately, in scarcity, decisions have to be made. The point, though, is the deaths have been largely in people over 60 with comorbidities. And so that's why they prioritized over 60 with comorbidities. Yes, there have been other persons, if you look, because it's publicly available with comorbidities. I kind of, because having worked in public health for so many years, I do understand some of the decisions. I don't necessarily agree with them, and it's really difficult, but you have to make some hard decisions. It's like a mother who, you know, you have half a pound of flour to cook for all your children. And how to share that? It's kind of like that. You have to prioritize the most at risk, the most at risk first. If it was a perfect world where we could get enough vaccines to vaccine everybody, it would be wonderful. But the reality is that the Ministry of Health has to make some hard decisions. And I am familiar with the agonizing fears. And unfortunately, those of us, or those of you with just please observe the protocol, and pray that we will get enough vaccines. The giving out of the vaccines. That's my best answer. I really don't work with the Ministry of Health. I do have a good relationship, and I do work with a lot of people there, but I know it's a very hard decision. I understand where you're coming from, but I can't offer any comfort. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But during your explanation, you kept going in and out. I'm not quite sure if it is
Oh
your
dear.
internet.
Yeah, the
right.
internet. Oh, the internet. I'm so
Anyway,
sorry.
Thanks
Yes.
much.
Oh, I hope you got the gist of it.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So we have Joseph Da Costa, Lenisha, and then Miss Frankson in that order. So, Sir Da Costa, could you proceed with your question?
Good night. Thanks very much. Really appreciate the presentation. In fact, the presentation has answered most of the questions that I would bring to the presentation tonight. I got a video not too long ago, and I want to present. I was really happy that I get the video because what was said in the video sounded plausible to me. So I'm going to just share it, and then a representative can tell me if what was stated in the video is accurate. The video looked at the comparison between those two most popular vaccines that are most expensive, and also the one that we have here in Jamaica with the 70% efficacy as against 95% of those two that I think perhaps the person who asked the question about what if somebody prefer to wait until one of those with the 95% efficacy is available. It could be that person who, based on their understanding of the efficacy, may decide to wait. But what the video explained, which sounds plausible to me, is that to compare efficacy between the two vaccines is not an accurate science, because for it to be an be deemed an accurate comparison, you would have to use the same set of samples. So what the person is saying is really kind of like a poll of a certain, of a set of people at different times. So the person said the time of the test, the sample of the test, influence what is called the efficacy. So it does not necessarily follow that those are 95%, meaning that there's a 95% chance of safety as against a 70% chance of protection or safety with what's the one that, what's the name of the one?
AstraZeneca.
Is that accurate? Is that an accurate?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that because the vaccine trials were done under similar conditions with the same processes, not the same people, obviously not. It's not the same people, but they have to go through in order to get passed by the WHO and the European Medicines Association. They have to go through a certain test. It's like you're going up to matriculate to UWI. You can't, some people can't go with 1 CXC and some people go with 10. You all have to have a limit. And so all of these trials went through a certain rigor. And what is reported internationally by the World Health Organization are those results. So I'm not gonna rule out your video, but I am very doubtful that that is so. I think what is reported by WHO in terms of efficacy is correct. And the European Medicines Association.
Well, what the video is saying, the video is not saying that they are not, the efficacy is incorrect, you know, and it's not saying that they are not efficient. What the video is saying is that don't read too much in the 70 in relation to the 95.
Right.
What the video is saying is that you could very well get greater protection from the 70 than the 95. Because the 95, the persons who, because what determines the efficacy is the number of persons who may have
contracted.
It's
the number of persons who you vaccine, you know, who you vaccinate. That's the efficacy. The efficacy is best when you vaccinate, you reach herd immunity. So whether it is 70 or 95, if you don't reach herd immunity, you can't push it back. You get me? So
yeah, well, I am good because with 70 is very high.
Yes, that's very high for a vaccine.
Yeah, but yeah, I kind of, you see, I'm looking at it solely from the fact that this is just a poll perspective. Like when you take a poll of people and you test, it is in terms of the result, it may not be 100% accurate. And so the difference between the 70 and the 95, which is what the video is saying, is that don't read too much into that. Don't discount the 70 too much. Well, you're not going to take the one with the 70. It very well could be just as effective or more effective than the one with the 95 results. Is the point the video was making.
Okay, I hear you. I didn't see the video myself, so I can't really comment on it, but I do know that for any vaccine to be really, really effective in a population, we have to get to the herd immunity, which is 60% of the population being vaccinated. So that whatever one we use, even if we use the most expensive one, if enough people are not vaccinated, then COVID is not going to stop.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay. Was the next person? Was it Lenisha?
Lenisha, yes. And then after Lenisha, Miss Franson.
Okay.
Good evening again, everyone, and thanks so much again for acknowledging me. As with the others, I must also concur that the presentation was very informative. There was one thing that stuck out for me, though, in terms of you mentioned that these new ones, that is the new vaccines nowadays, in terms of having weakened antigen versus the mRNA in it, are you referring to the COVID-19 vaccines only, Or is it the new ones that the children nowadays, we would say, are also getting? Are they getting the weakened antigens, or are they also getting the mRNA
Okay.
vaccines?
Right, right. Yes. So in modern technology, we have moved away a lot. I'm not saying every single vaccine, but they're moving away from giving people the actual pathogen, and they're moving now to the new mRNA, which is like a photocopy that gives a signal to your body. So COVID-19 is not the only vaccine, all right, that uses mRNA technology. You can actually go into websites and look at all the vaccines that now use mRNA. And we do have other vaccines that we're taking that does use that technology as well. Did that answer your question, or did my internet drop again?
It did, but I think I can understand, or from what I really heard, that nowadays they're moving towards the weakened pathogens and putting it more towards the mRNA, which
Yeah,
sends
that's
the
correct.
signals to our, okay, then, all right,
That's
thank
correct.
you.
That's correct.
Yeah, Miss Frankson or Frankson?
Frankson, yes.
Okay.
Good night. I'm still curious about the link between the AstraZeneca and the the clotting of the blood, because I've been getting or seeing a lot of videos, even from doctors here in Jamaica, regarding the link between the blood clotting and the AstraZeneca. And I want to know if what research or investigation is being done, because even though you say that the benefits outweigh the risk, and only 19% so far, everybody has not gotten the vaccine as yet, so we don't know what the actual numbers may be. So I'm curious to know if there is research or investigation being done to ascertain why there may be a link to the AstraZeneca, specifically that vaccine, and blood clots. Why if there's any research being done to ascertain why? What
Yes.
about the vaccine? What ingredients or so on, and who is more at risk for
Right.
getting this?
So yes, certainly, very good question. Of course, just recently, just yesterday, the European Medicines Association, because remember, it's Poland, another European country where this was recorded, that this was noted. All right. And so the European Medicines Association did do their research and yesterday announced that it is real that those 19 cases of blood clotting were associated with the AstraZeneca. In terms of not a lot has been published, because I did check before I came on in terms of how that happens, but they do note that of all the I think it was 30,000 people who received it in those countries, not 30 million people who received it in those countries, 19 people got it. So they know that it's very rare, but it still exists. And I understand people's concern, because I could be the one out of the 300 million or the 30 million who have the blood clot, the thrombosis. But why I'm saying, this is my conclusion and the conclusion of many people in science, that if it is, you have given something, all right, to 30 million people, and 19 of them, all right, develop an adverse reaction, should you throw it away? You get my point?
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm saying the benefits outweigh the risk. And certainly they will continue, because remember, this is something new. A lot of people don't realize that because of the newness of COVID-19, and there's so much that we do not know about COVID-19, that the scientists are continuing to do their research on every single thing about COVID-19 itself and about the vaccine. Because remember now, we don't even have 6 months of the vaccine yet. So this is being very, very closely monitored. And I'm sure maybe in another few days, we will get more explanation of what it is exactly, what is the mechanism that leads to the thrombosis. But certainly I am not worried. I got the AstraZeneca. I'm not worrying. I am trusting God that he will keep me safe, which everybody can make their own decision. But I'm saying to myself, if it is that it is very, very rare and I should get thrombosis, then it must be God's will. That's how I look at it. You don't have to look at it that way. You know what I'm saying? But I look at it that way.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's very new. So in a few, you can just what you should do is always try to, I don't advise you're linking on, because this is one of the things that I didn't mention, but I should have said in preparing, is that there are lots of long-term effects of getting COVID-19. People think you just get COVID-19, especially the young people. They're so glib about it. They think you get COVID-19, you get a little sick and you get better. But more and more, they are realizing, the scientists are realizing that COVID-19 has long-term effects. Even if you don't get severe symptoms, they're talking about now long COVID. That 10, 15 years later, you will realize that you have a heart condition. Even, they say, neurological effects, which will even affect your mental health. And so therefore, it is not something that people should say, oh, I hear people talk about, oh, me I go get the COVID and get the natural immunity. There is long COVID that we are just beginning to realize that this is something that is really detrimental, and that people can't take this, oh, I get COVID and develop my, I've heard people say, I just get COVID and develop my natural immunity.
Yes.
But there are no, and scientists are realizing more and more.
Okay, you faded a bit, Dr. Bailey, at least on my end.
Okay, I stopped talking. I was talking about the long-term effects of COVID. Did you hear that?
Part
yes.
of it.
Okay. Not hearing you, Dr. Bailey.
No, I'm not speaking now. I'm waiting on the next question.
Okay. All right. Is there any more questions? I'm not seeing any more hands. I don't know if persons have additional questions. If you wish, you could just open up the mic and proceed. So
just a comment that I would appreciate if Dr. Bailey have any comment on this. The collaboration that for the procurement mechanism. We're happy for it, and I fully agree with you that that's a plus out of the pandemic. But at the end of the day, if richer countries are still hoarding, doesn't it speak to a flaw in the collaboration?
Well, yes, it does. You can't force people to collaborate, can you? The World Health Organization, I don't know if you've been following the media, but they have been lashing out at the countries that are hoarding. It's been saying, you guys are terrible. You're actually being stupid, because if you immunize your population and people are coming to your country and mixing with your population, then the new variants are going to develop, and you're going to be protected against one type, but somebody's going to come from another country. Right now, Brazil, for example, is being banned by many countries because the Brazil variant is very, very contagious. And I think Jamaica yesterday announced that they are no longer taking visitors from Brazil. So if they continue to get their herd immunity against this variant that they have there in Europe. And then people, visitors come because every country has tourism. And then somebody else, if they don't get the other countries to reach herd immunity, all these new variants are going to come up. And then at a point in time, we're going to not be able to manage COVID-19 because you're going to have a Jamaica variant, you're going to have a Brazil variant, you're going to have a Cuba variant, you're going to have a South America variant. We need to get COVID to stop spreading. And the more it spreads, the more variants you're going to get. And it's going to be harder to manage. And that's what the World Health Organization have been saying to them. So we do have to, because it's like, a big bully, taking everything. You're at school and the big bully taking all the things that the teacher gave. And then a group of us come against the big bully and trying to get some for ourselves. So they're not going to join the poorer countries. They are not going to. But the countries that are less endowed have to stand up for themselves and say, hey, we are negotiating with these countries that are producing the vaccine, and we're going to try to get some for ourselves and distribute it among ourselves. There has to be equity. You guys can't have everything, and then you're going to keep it there, and then it's going to expire, and then there are people. Look at that. You have 30% of the American population vaccinated, and everywhere else in the world less than 1%. That's not fair.
Yeah, well, I guess we may not be able to achieve the kind of equity that would be ideal for this COVID-19 pandemic. But going forward, I hope that there will be conventions, etc., that will, ensure something in place that is better than the kind of collaboration that obtains, which obviously is it probably is best described as individuality within the collaboration. And so hopefully going forward there will be conventions, certain rules that will prohibit
My brother, I admire your faith.
that countries, the richer, bigger countries, from the self-interest at the expense of other countries.
My brother, I admire your faith in conventions, but I have no such faith in conventions because there are many conventions that have been signed, and are those countries obeying them? Who enforces? So let's try what we can.
Let's hope that will happen. Can only hope and pray.
God is in charge.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, Dr. Bailey, that might have been the last question or comment. I think that we have come to a very fruitful, a well-spent evening on perhaps the topic of the century. No doubt.
No doubt.
No doubt. The topic of the century. And you have, as Marilyn said, you have really made the information accessible to the simplest of us here. So we are extremely grateful for your presentation, the content, your grace, your own input and perspective, your personal sharing as well. In terms of even you having the vaccine, we are very, very grateful, and we are quite delighted that you're one of us, so to speak, of faith. So thank you very much. On behalf of the team, I don't know if our Mr. Vin Ellis, if he's available, I know that he's on the agenda to give the vote of thanks. Dr. Bailey, you have just been wonderful. Vin, are you available and ready to deliver the vote of thanks? Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I hand over to our Mr. Vin Ellis, who will give the vote of thanks and closing remarks. Thanks again.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Rosetown Holiest Christian Church, the Church and Urban Renewal Enterprise Cure, I would like to thank Dr. Althea Bailey for taking the time out of her busy schedule to come and provide information on COVID itself and the COVID vaccine. This has come at a time when there are so many myths and counter arguments about this vaccine. I am sure all of us are now more knowledgeable about this virus and the vaccine and can make more informed decisions. I would also like to thank the executive of CURE for putting on this presentation. Special thanks to all of you who had attend this informative presentation. And I'm sure a lot of us, as I said, are much aware, decisions that have been made that whether or not we have to take it, yes or no, and is it good or anything, we'll have to make a final decision regarding that. Thank you again, Dr. Bailey.
You are most welcome, and thank you also for inviting me.
And given the topic, and as you said, we're still learning, we're asking that you keep us on your short list as more knowledge, more information is available. No doubt there will be changes and new information. So we hope to be on your short list. And so,
okay, certainly.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone. Have a good rest of the night. And
Thanks.
let's pray for
Good
Jamaica.
night, and thank you.
As far as
Night,
I'm
and thank you so
concerned,
much.
violence is far more dangerous than this country needs deliverance from violence. Please pray.
So true. So true. So true. And Dr. Bailey, I'm seeing you have one convert. I see in the chat one person put a note that
Oh,
she's
wonderful.
now willing to take the vaccine.
I'm very happy to hear that, Joy.
So you are a vaccine evangelist.
Yeah, but I am under 60. So they're not
Oh,
going to
you're
reach
under
me for
60?
now. Yeah,
Oh
they're not
dear.
going to reach me for now.
Oh my goodness, Joy. I'm so sorry to hear that. You need to join the JDF or the JCF or become a healthcare worker.
Look, so I skip
Never
the
mind.
line.
Never mind. Please keep safe.
I have been, thank God.
Okay, wonderful. All right.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Bailey.
You're welcome.
Thank you so very much. I was just so happy that Anne sent me the presentation in the nick of time, so I was able to hear it.
Okay.
And I knew immediately that I wanted you to present for our church. So thank you so very much, and God continue to bless you.
Okay, thank you. And the same to you all.
All righty.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Have a good evening, and thanks again